Ado and the song Ibarra. We are here to check that out today as part of our Zanmu track by track listen through. But first of all, Ado fans, I have some slightly disappointing news. See, I did my reaction to Show last, and that was one where, like I said, it was a contentious issue because this was the only song on the album where I was a little bit concerned. I'd heard it in the past and I wasn't a big fan, so I thought I would throw a little thing in there to check before reading the comments that you guys had actually listened to the review properly, because I want to make sure that when we talk in the comments, we talk properly. Well, this is what I put in, and I just want to play this to you so you can listen real quickly. I'll give you a little word later on, and I'll tell you what the word is, and I want you to write that word in your comment just so I know that you've actually listened to everything I'm saying here. Yeah, so I wanted to make sure you'd listened to everything I said. So, the word's reality. The word reality was that, but then later on in the video, by the way, the second word is taxi. I threw in a couple of words. Not a single person included them. Oh, yes. So, just a reminder, guys, I'm not just here to do reactions where I just sit and nod my head at the video. I'm here to talk about music because I think music opinion is interesting. I know that maybe some people didn't quite hear them, fair enough, but I really hope that this time so we can have a proper conversation, so I know that when I'm replying to your comments, because I always try to reply to the comments, when I'm replying to the comments, or at least I read them all, when I'm trying to reply to the comments, I want to know that you've actually watched the video so that we're both talking on the same level, alright? So anyway, I am the only, loads of YouTubers would just be like, hey, comment on my videos. I'm the only person in here who can actually come into the video and chastise you for not commenting well enough. Anyway, look, I want to enjoy this album with you guys, and I want to have good conversations with fans, so I hope you are checking out my thoughts properly so that when we discuss this, we can discuss this properly and that I know you know my opinions. Anyway, Ibarra, this is the album, this is the song we're checking out today. Zanmu, as I mentioned, was an album that I got into because of the fact that, you know, I've been such a fan of Ado's music, and she reshaped so much of the Japanese music scene that I loved, or at least the mainstream popular sound of that scene. But there was some, Show was a song that, like I said, I heard on the radio and it wasn't one I'd enjoyed. So I decided to come back to check out this album to really get a feel for what other things she was doing around that time. We've now listened to Show, but we've also now listened to all but 3 songs of the album. So we're getting into the end. It has been an album that has given me some cool little tracks that were nice. We've had a lot around the middle, which was quite enjoyable. Stuff like All Night Radio and Himawari. Nice songs that have just been kind of good ones that have padded out the collection of Ado songs that I like. But then we've also had songs like I'm a Controversy, which I really enjoyed. Dignity, which is obviously a writing credit I didn't expect and gave us a big anthemic song that I was not really prepared for. You know, we've had quite an interesting album here. So honestly, I think whatever comes out of this, I'm going to feel just really good that we've listened to it. Now, the next song is a song called Value, which for some reason it's saying that I've heard before, but I don't remember having heard this. So I'm going to double check that. And then the song Zero was one that I did a reaction to very recently. So I don't know if Ibarra is going to be the last one in this series, but either way, I will check and make sure to come back to you. I don't know why. I don't know if Value is one of those songs which is auto-played at some point without me noticing, but I don't remember seeing this one before. So I will double check that. But for today, we're going to be listening to Ibarra to continue our track by track listen through to Zanmu and hopefully add another really interesting and great experience to it. Anyway, here we go. This is Ibarra by the one and only Ado. その茨で願いを一つ叶えてくれよ Oh, I love that stereo acoustic. Oh, that's such a good start. Let's go. Oh, that's so rock and roll. Yeah. That backing vocal sound, that was nice. Helps to build up. That's a nice chorus, kind of a very emotionally heavy sounding chorus, that anthemic as well. Well, I like how the bass has come up an octave here. And that one guitar holding on. Yeah, the vibe, the whole feeling of this song. That cathartic kind of I like how the bridge is just kind of an extension of the pre-chorus by the sound of it. It does the solo and background very quickly. Interesting. Yeah, it's just straight rock, straight background to the chorus. It is a good chorus though. Those backing vocals are lovely. That was not what I expected. Do you know what? Oh, we've got credits. Let's get it. I don't want the next song to play before I've heard the credits. Let's get the credits up on screen. All right, so I feel like there's got to be some notable people involved in this. And if not, then credit to whoever is involved. Lyrics and Vorndy, of course. I just had to guess this was a Vorndy song. At least it's got that credit, that sound, which is definitely very Vorndy. Straight rock and roll in like a really Japanese way. Like the chord structuring here, very sort of like a Japanese style chord structure to the chorus, and yet there's something very mainstream rock and roll in the best possible way about the overall tone and sound. So yeah, Vorndy, that makes total sense. I will say though, so effectively what we're listening to is a Vorndy song headed up by Ado, and obviously a Vorndy song written with Ado in mind. So I don't say that in a derogatory way. When listening to this song though, I think the thing which really gathered me about it is that it's one of those, well, first of all, it's not the sort of song I expected at this point in the album, but, you know, so much of this album has been full of unexpected tones and sounds that, you know, you can't really say that anything is expected, but I just love the fact that when you press play on a song, it could be anything, and for it to just suddenly come on with like a high-paced rock and roll song that starts with stereo acoustics and hand claps, and this kind of very raw and visceral kind of build-up after show, which was a much more high production kind of song, you know, very much produced and mixed with like lots of cool studio effects. It was such a left turn. I really like that, yeah, but still very high energy song. Really enjoyed this. So I must say, on a musical standpoint, I think that this is an example of a song that is, where it is straight rock and roll. And again, I don't want it to come across like I'm speaking of it in a demeaning or derogatory way. It's not really anything particularly complicated in here. But what it does do is very effective. Again, that intro is so powerful. The way that it starts off with the stereo guitars and the hand claps, and then just obviously Ado's voice alone. Because the thing is when you get a song that starts off with just that, just guitar, clap, and vocal. You know that more's going to come in later. But when already just that minimalist starting already feels really engaging, that is a very strong way to start a song. Now, the techniques that are used to make this intro sound so rounded and so engaging before the whole song's come in, very simple. First of all, hand claps. You know, obviously it's nowhere near as thick as a drum beat, but when you hear hand claps, it just kind of, on a very clear, visceral level, it makes you want to clap along. You hear hand claps and you want to clap along. It's kind of like you're just hearing, it's a very human sound. You're hearing humans clapping. You want to clap. Then when it comes to guitars, as I say, the guitars are cleverly, it could just be one guitar, but instead they take two guitars, put them on either side of the stereo. So again, even though the rest of the song hasn't come in, you still feel like you've got the guitars surrounding you, left and right. And then obviously when it comes to the vocals, you hire Adder. That's a good way of making that more than it could have been otherwise. So listen to the intro. Even though we've just got hand claps, vocals, and guitar, it feels so engaging whilst also letting you know the song hasn't even come in yet. その茨で願いを一つ叶えてくれよもうこの待たれた浅い眠りに傷をつけてさ I stand corrected, the guitar hadn't been stereo panned at that point. I stand corrected, it was a good reverb, but the hand clap has been stereo panned. Okay. And then the kick drum comes in quickly. Yeah, actually, I remember that slightly wrong. The vocal had been layered, so you got two vocal recordings, one on top of each other. So it's actually the vocal that's been layered. The hand clap is stereo, and the guitar is just the one guitar, but it is acoustic. With all of that, you've got multiple hand claps, stereo, 2 layers of vocals. So even though you've only technically got 3 sounds, they're layered up. They're given a lot of personality, a lot of thickness, and a tone that's very engaging. So when the song eventually does come in, it's already been built up hugely over the first like 20 odd seconds that you're already really excited before it's even dropped. Then when it does come in, you've got all of those classic rock and roll sounds, the guitar, everything is quite lively, quite bouncy. It's not overly distorted, but it's rocking along really well. And one of the things that I really enjoyed about this as well was the use of backing vocals. Now this harkens back to a style of pop rock and roll music that was actually it had a little bit of a revival in the West in like the late 90s. Funny things, I think about a lot of like everything from like Natalie Imbruglia, Eagle Eye Cherry, even like the Rembrandts with the Friends theme tune. There was a lot of that kind of like revival rock and roll sort of music going on at that time. And I think it was kind of referred to as alt rock, I think. But anyway, I never really understood a lot of those weird terminologies. They kind of didn't make sense. But the funny thing is that a common sound that would come up in those types of rock and roll music during that time was the use of like a sustained backing sound to thicken things. Now, sometimes they would rely on a Hammond organ, like an electric organ sound that would be quietly put in the background but would thicken up the sound in like the choruses. Sometimes it would be extensive use of backing vocals, just kind of like a held back note that would quietly be in the background. And this would be a common thing as well, which was used as a production technique. I've got to be honest, whatever you think of that particular era of like rock music, it was a very effective technique. And I feel a little bit of that comes up here as well. And some of the pre-chorus, especially, I think was the first time we heard it. Got a little bit of it there. Yeah, you heard a little bit of it there. Let me just run that back again so you can hear like that. The whole way it's produced and mixed to sound almost more like an instrument than a backing vocal. But it sits there in the background and it thickens things up without sounding too obtrusive, without sounding too out there. It doesn't sound like some weird sounds just come in temporarily. It does sound like another vocal layer, but it works as a backing instrument that thickens things up. Love that. The chorus itself, very simple, but nice, memorable, clear emotional delivery. Yeah, the lyrics were talking about very universal themes, nothing there that we haven't heard before, but I do like the fact that, from what I could gather, it just sort of came across with, I don't usually do lyrics because often I talk about the fact there's a lot of universal themes, But I do think that this, again, felt like it was nice with this kind of uplifting sense of fighting against the darkness, rebelling against the negativity. I think the song for me conveyed the emotion perfectly well, but it seemed that the lyrics were in keeping with that. I think when I saw the visuals and everything, it made me put on the lyric button just to check there wasn't anything I was going to miss. But when we listen to that final chorus again, it's just that feeling that everything feels, yeah, the clenched fist. Like, it's kind of got an anthemic feeling. It's rock and roll as well, which means it's upbeat, but it's this rock and roll anthemic fight back against the negativity. This song about sort of a positive, catharsis about the things that maybe have hurt you, and this feeling of pushing forwards into the positive. It certainly conveys that. I think the chorus does that well by also having a chord pattern that sort of descends, and so it kind of feels a bit negative, but then it pushes back at the end. And then it builds up. Anthemic, down, hardship, life's too hard, but then you push back and everything's okay. That kind of walk you down slowly while singing in a big way, but then push back at the end. That's like a really nice kind of like shorthand for fighting back against negativity. And plus, like any good chorus, starting on like a high note and then working down. It means the chorus has an initial punch when it comes in, starts high up, which means it's got a little bit of room to walk you down, build you back up. So yeah, everything about this, it's very simple, but it's structured in a way that really conveys the emotion brilliantly. I enjoyed this. I thought this was a good, fun example of a simple rock song that used Ado's voice well. I felt like it emotionally was in keeping with a sound that she was very good at conveying. I think she delivered it well. I think the song was simple but effective. Yeah, I really enjoyed this. Is it a song that I would come back to a lot on its own? Maybe not, just because there's a lot of songs in this kind of like rock, sort of cathartic rock space. There's a lot of songs that I would put this on a playlist with, though. And I mean that again in a positive way. So I really enjoyed this. Definitely one that I would come back to. As always, get in the comments and tell me what you think. Did you enjoy this as well? What are your thoughts? How does it stack up to the rest of the album? How do you feel about it in the album? How do you feel about it out of the album as its own song? Thank you for actually watching the whole thing. And until I hopefully see you very soon in Japan for the next one of these, for now, ciao, ciao.